There is a long line of people waiting outside a house on the south side of Mexico City. The line is full of visibly ill people. There are people in clutches, arm slings, coughing. People are just in very bad shape. Inside the home, there is a dark room. A man has been witnessing for months what has been happening in the dimly lit area. One after the other, the people that are placed on the table in the middle of the dark chamber start to recover from whichever health problem they came in. The man witnessing these incredible acts is a scientist, and a well respected one at that. Right before his eyes, an elderly lady whose name is Pachita has just brought back to consciousness a 5-year-old girl that has been in a vegetative state for months throughout what is known as psychic surgery. Pachita claims that the spirit of Cuauhtémoc, the last Aztec emperor, takes over her and heals the sick. The scientist starts to gain knowledge. He experiments with psychedelics. He uses meditation. He leaves on retreats. He is considered too shamanic for scientists and too scientific for shamans. His name is Jacobo Grinberg, and his disappearance sparked one of Mexico's most known conspiracy theories. Uy Cucuy, welcome back to the Mexighost Tales. I am your host, Danny Chavez, here today with our first ever Mexican conspiracy theory case. And this is definitely one of the most incredible cases in Mexico's history. But first, if you like this video, that is all we do on this channel. We talk ghost stories, urban legends, true crime, and more, hailing from Mexico. Please grab that subscribe button. Leave a like and a comment. It helps us a lot when you give us suggestions for future episodes. And also, your suggestions to better our content are always welcome. This conspiracy theory does include information that I can neither confirm nor deny, as all conspiracy theories do. So please take all the information here with a grain of salt. With that being said, viewer discretion is advised. As you saw in the intro, there is some gory details that will be discussed in this episode. In 2020, a documentary was released. The name of the film, El Secreto del Dr. Grienberg, The Secret of Dr. Grienberg. The footage renewed the interest for this case. The disappearance of Jacobo Grinberg took place December 8th, 1994. He was 47 years old, and to date, he has yet to be found. But who is Dr. Grienberg? He is known as a Mexican neuropsychologist and a psychologist. I hope I'm not butchering that, but I really don't want to go in depth with all his acolytes because, like I just did, I would probably butcher a lot of the language and terminology that it's needed to describe. Basically, he was very controversial because he studied shamanism and other esoteric practices and would approach them with a scientific perspective. Jacobo Grinberg published close to 50 books. He was a very relevant person in the Mexican counterculture. He was extremely curious. He had studied psychology in the UNAM, which is basically the National Autonomous University of Mexico. He traveled to New York, where he studied psychophysiology. Initially, Dr. Grienberg was out to uncover all of these practices and prove to the world that it was all a hoax and that there was no evidence that a magical world existed. His investigations would soon prove him wrong. Throughout his experiments, Dr. Grienberg had multiple discoveries. His initial experiment involved kids. He was set out to prove that children had a higher consciousness level than adults. But soon he would discontinue the experiments after discovering that once the children started to spend too much time in these experiments, they would have side effects. They would start to become more reclusive, and some even started to see evil creatures. His experiments gained him the opportunity to get a grant and head his own department. He met the sister of then President Jose Lopez Portillo. Her name, Margarita Lopez Portillo. Margarita was impressed with Grienberg for his knowledge of shamanism and other esoteric fields. A devout follower of said practices, Margarita introduced Grienberg to Pachita. Pachita was known all over the globe. Pachita on her own could have an episode here, but I'll just give you a little bit of insight of Pachita. She was consulted by celebrities, politicians, and anyone who was important in Mexico at the time. She claimed that she was able to open up her patients with nothing else but a butcher knife and complete surgeries at the time that were considered impossible. She could, for example, replace vertebrae. Once the spirit of Cuauhtemoc took over her, the magic would happen. The encounters with Pachita had a huge impact on Dr. Grienberg. He even wrote a book titled Pachita, where he analyzed the scientific basis of his experience with the shaman. He concluded in his studies that the ability of Pachita to heal people was the result of Pachita being able to mold reality at her will, resulting in his most famous theory, the synergy theory, which it states basically in a nutshell that what we understand as reality is only a small part of what is around us, as we are surrounded by energy. I wouldn't be able to explain it in full, but if this is something that is interesting, you can read his research in the book El Cerebro Consciente, or The Conscious Brain. His research was published in medical journals and magazines. He was invited to conference and gained more notoriety, hence the nickname the scientific shaman. He would walk between two worlds, trying to understand everything that surrounds us. He then met with another shaman who was very renowned at the time, Carlos Castaneda. But soon, Jacobo distanced himself from Castaneda, arguing that he was not looking to expand consciousness, that Castaneda was in it to gain power. He then ended any collaboration with his people. Castaneda later disappeared from the public eye. His claims were more and more proven to be false, and that he was nothing more than a scam artist, or more like a cult leader. Let me know in the comments if you would like to delve into this character as well. In 1987, he founded the National Institute for Consciousness Study, financed by UNAM and the National Science and Technology Council, or CONACYT. By that time, he had already married a second time, a woman by the name of Teresa. Grienberg had a failed marriage from where he had his only daughter, Estucha. While there was a good relationship between Dr. Grienberg's former wife and his daughter, things with Teresa were a bit different. By this time, Grienberg was making advances in another experiment in which he was set out to prove that individuals were able to share the brain's potential to another, even if they were in different parts of the world. He was focusing on true telepathy, claiming that consciousness was something that existed outside the human brain. He started to get funding from numerous institutions, and even his detractors started to show interest in his work. With everything set in course, Jacobo Grinberg disappeared. He had shared with people close to him that he was planning to go on a spiritual retreat that would take place in Tibet. He would stop answering his calls on December 12 of 1994. He did not show up to his own birthday party. Grienberg was impulsive, and people started assuming that he had already gone on his trip. everyone except his daughter. It was uncommon for Jacobo to go on a trip and not say goodbye to his daughter, as he was a devoted father. There are no records of him leaving the country, and that's when the wheels started spinning. Agent Padilla was assigned the task to find the scientist. Once he started his investigation, he quickly found his first lead. Teresa had fled the country just a few days after her husband's disappearance. She had emptied out the bank accounts and was nowhere to be found. Padilla soon found out that Teresa claimed to have powers and that she was a very spiritual person. That was until her dark side would take over as she would lash out in uncontrollable anger outbursts frequently. She had established a relationship with a janitor by the name of Gerardo Morales Alonso, someone who in appearance seemed to be harmless, that would help her run errands. But when Officer Padilla digged a little deeper, he found out that Gerardo had a paramilitary background. The detective questioned what was the relationship. Padilla soon discarded the idea of a passion crime. This was because when he searched Grienberg's home, there was no trace of his investigation left behind. No journals, no hard drives, nothing. All of his work had disappeared along with him. Estucha went public on a TV show called Siempre en Domingo, always on Sunday. This show had a large audience at the time, and in an effort to help the investigation, she gave a phone number for people to call and give any information that would lead authorities to finding his missing father. Padilla discarded all the false leads, but one call caught his attention. This was a lead that cost Padilla his job. The caller stated that he had seen Jacobo Grinberg accompanied by Teresa and a tall blonde woman. They were escorted by FBI agents. Padilla took a look and discovered that Grienberg would travel frequently to Boulder, Colorado, and that these trips were never a direct flight from Mexico, and he would never let anyone know of these trips, not even his closest friends. Padilla claimed that Grienberg had secret meetings with the FBI and CIA. Padilla was able to get testimony that large corporations had made several attempts to fund Grienberg's research, but he had always refused them, arguing that he wanted to keep his research as independent as possible. With this evidence, Padilla claims that then President Ernesto Zedillo sent people to talk to him about his advances in the investigation, and that soon after he was relieved of his duties as he was getting closer to cracking the case. He was considered an odd job, and even the Grienberg family thought that there was no way that the FBI and CIA were after Jacobo. In January 2017, the CIA declassified more than 930,000 documents. In these documents, Jacobo Grinberg and his experiments were mentioned. Indeed, he was being investigated by the CIA. Padilla's claims seemed to be correct as soon as Grienberg was linked to the Stargate project, in which the government spent millions of dollars in research to try and implement telepathy for military applications. The theory claims that Jacobo was co-opted by the CIA and that Teresa was a sleeper agent of said agency. This is due to Teresa's family not even being aware that she had gotten married. The theory gained a little more traction when Teresa was enrolled in a college in the US. She never attended one class and returned to Mexico with a psychology degree. There are also versions that he is currently working with NASA due to his extensive understanding of space and that he had previously worked with US intelligence agencies. There is also the theory that he was abducted by aliens, or that he transcended to a different dimension, thanks to him being able to contact them. And supposedly, according to his journals, he was always able to make contact with these aliens. But there is also a darker side to these theories. The tall blonde woman spotted with Grienberg and Teresa in Colorado has an identity. She is Florinda Donner. She is known as one of Castañeda's brujas, or witches. This is the term that was used for 3 of the women who were friends with Castañeda and his cult. After his death in 1998, Florinda and 4 other women disappeared. This version claims that Castañeda blamed Grienberg for his fall from grace. Jacobo Grinberg is yet to be found. Whichever version you choose to believe, it is undeniable that Grienberg made an extraordinary effort to make us understand that human potential is unlimited. However, his disappearance leaves more questions than answers, and we may never truly know what he had uncovered in his research. And with that, we come to the end of another Mexighost Tales. I hope you liked it. If you do, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like and a comment, leave us your suggestions for future episodes. And again, you can follow us in Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook as the Mexighost. And I hope to see you on the next Mexighost Tales, where we will explore another part of Mexico's other history.
Y celebraremos una gran fiesta mexicana juntos.
¿De qué fiesta hablas?
Noviembre 2.
¿Y qué celebran?
A los muertos.